You are my first beautiful person on this experiment of just conversation and just getting to know beautiful people that are creative and interesting and that have a thoughtful perspective.
Thank you. It's honestly an honor.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like when you said be on your podcast, I felt like, I'm like, how did I miss this? Like, oh, he has to have been doing this forever. So thank you. It is an honor to be your first guest.
Man, you get to pop my cherry. You know what I'm saying? At least on this show. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm grateful. Like I've always wanted to, I just love talking to people and just hearing what they think about things and hearing their perspective on things and sharing mine and hearing their thoughts. You know what I'm saying? So I've always been like, man, how can I get paid to talk? And there's podcasting. It's like, I kind of tried getting it started actually back in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, I still have it, another show called Human Story. And, but what happened was, I came up with the concept in 2020 actually, and then I was gonna execute in 2021, but then I had COVID, and then I had a dream about Bhuetful, and I was like, oh man, I gotta do this. Like, it just kind of took over my whole focus as far as, you know, what I wanted to do. But I said once I got Bhuetful together, I would come back and get Human Story going again. But I feel like to kind of continue the conversation that started from COVID within myself, as far as, you know, having a dream about a brand called Bhuetful, I felt like the next step would be Bhuetful People, because that's really what it's about. You know, I don't do this in a vacuum.
Yeah. I think that's interesting to hear from me, just because I honestly, I didn't know how Bhuetful began. I didn't know that was the story, the lore behind the company. Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's really cool. I mean, I'm sorry that you got COVID, but at the same time that it came to you in a dream feels pretty poetic at the very least.
It feels crazy. It really does. It feels crazy. It's like this one dream and I'm off on this crazy path, you know. It's like, but I couldn't stop. You know what I mean? Once I started, it was like, okay, how could I do this? How would it be even possible, you know, to create something, especially called Bhuetful? Like, how could I do that in a serious way? You know what I'm saying? Like when I say in a serious way, and what I'm trying to build here, not just like having a shirt or, you know, doing like one-off that says Bhuetful on it, or it's a concept, it's a vibe, it's a, you know, it's an art project, really. You know what I'm saying? So it has purpose, it has meaning, it has, you know, it has a mission. You know what I'm saying? So when I had the dream, it was kind of like, so I used to work in fashion in a capacity where I would work with buyers and salespeople and reps for different lines. So in the dream, I'm back in that space in a conference room with buyers that I know. Mind you, I don't know who these people are. Like, I can't remember their faces. I don't remember who they are. I just know in the dream I knew them. And we were there talking about my line, Bhuetful, and, you know, talking about what they were going to order. you know what I'm saying?
Like, did you see the spelling at that time? Because
No.
your spelling is such an interesting spelling, and it makes sense. Like, but like, when did that come clear to you, or was it just this idea that you have a clothing line called Bhuetful was what was clear in this?
That's it.
Okay.
I don't remember there was no, I couldn't remember what it looked like, the brand. Like, I don't remember faces. I just remember where I was. I remember what I was doing, and I remember the feeling I had. And it just kind of felt like, yeah, you know, this is where I should be, because I've been in this world for so long, and I've dabbled, you know, me and my boys back in the day, we would make T-shirts in the crib and go on the street and sell them, you know what I'm saying, in New York, which could get hectic because you're not supposed to sell on the street in New York without a permit or a license or something. So if you're doing good, other people will snitch on you. Be like, yo, he ain't got no permit. They'll send the cops after you because they feel like you're taking their business, even if you're selling something completely different.
It's very competitive.
It is. To me, it's just petty, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not taking food off your plate. It's like, you selling books, I'm selling shirts.
So it's like a whole dream realized, because like it went from just busking on the street to like now a full beautiful line that came to you in a dream. Has that moment like come full circle yet? Because like, I don't know, like I've had dreams that have come true.
Wow.
And like, do you feel like that's happened before, like where you've relived that moment in some way?
I mean, I would call that deja vu for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I had a dream and it came through, I've had where that happened. I had a dream and it kind of happened the way it happened in the dream. Or I don't even remember if it was a dream, but you know when it happens, you're like, yo, this happened already.
Yeah, like you know this is familiar. This has happened before.
Yeah, it felt like a glitch, you know? But it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's something that, you know, I was telling somebody and they were like, you know, that's the ancestors talking to you. I was like, you know, what, through the dream? You know what I'm saying? And they were like, well, yes, but not through the dream. Like when you're sick, your body's open. And, you know, so the ancestors can come in. And that's how she was telling me, like how she was explaining it to me. And she's like a professor that does this stuff. And it was kind of like a different perspective, that I hadn't considered. And, you know, that in that moment of feeling like I was dying, you know, the ancestors came in. Because COVID for me was crazy. COVID was like, and I have asthma, so it was like, you know.
Got serious?
Well, it really didn't. Like, it did, but then, you know, whenever I felt like something happened, like something respiratory happening, this sounds absolutely batshit crazy. But every time I felt like I was having some sort of, because it wasn't one thing. Like when I felt like I was having some sort of respiratory episode, I would just blaze and I would be fine. But it felt, you ever watch those cartoons and it's like they have the long hallway with the doors on it and they like knocking on every door, seeing what's in there? It felt like the shit was running around me, opening every door, seeing what it could fuck with. That's what it felt like for me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy, and it felt like it was very emotional. It was weird. Like I would just, I don't know. It was a weird feeling. Like I was really worried about the respiratory aspect of it, but it was more of like these headaches, chest pains, and like very strange emotion, because I'm not really, you know, like I'm not like that. So it's just like, it was taking me places, yo. But yeah, when I had COVID, it was trippy. So to have this dream, like, you know, like 2 weeks in, because I had it for like 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, because this is pre-vaccine. Yeah, it's the fun one. So, you know, like the second weekend I had this dream, and that's when I kind of was like, yo, this ain't, I don't know how I could do this. It ain't really possible. You know what I'm saying? Because the word beautiful, like, how?
Yeah.
You know? So I'm like, okay, how could I do it? So I started really thinking about it and started, because I had human story already at the time, like the hue kind of, and I'm like, Bew, it just kind of started playing. And I was like, okay. And I did a few different spellings of it because I wasn't sure how people would see it, how it would be picked up phonetically if I was just the only one seeing it, you know. And you ask the people around you, and you know, it's like, but you can't really trust their feedback because they're either going to really support you, so they might agree with you even if they don't, or they might really not want to support you and put you down even if it's dope.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like you kind of had to get other perspectives. So I made like this little thing that had a couple of like 2 or 3 different spellings of it on there. But I kind of, you ever seen like a word cloud?
Yes.
So I kind of did it like that.
Okay.
And I kind of sent it to a few people I knew. I was like, what do you think of the spelling? And you know, how would you say it? You know? And they all were like, oh, beautiful, da da da, you know what I'm saying? Because I would like get on the phone with them, send it to them, and get the feedback right there. And they didn't notice the difference in spelling. So I was like, it doesn't matter how I spell it. I can spell it how I want, and people will still read it the way that I want them to read it.
They're receiving that message.
Right. So that's it.
And I think it's cool that you even were researching, like you were doing your own research and development, just like, how is this going to be received? How are people receiving it in its raw form, the way it came to you, the way you were seeing it? And it didn't matter the variations you gave it, people were receiving it no matter what. So I think that is a big deal, you know, because that's something like, I don't know. Okay, so like with my first logo that I still use for Lady Lowe's Productions, like the Lady Lowe's Productions LLC.
Yeah.
The way I did the L's, like I wanted it to look like a number 4 because that was my basketball number. And so having like the 4s in there, and it looked like 2 4s, like for the front and the back. At least that is what I was thinking in my mind. But like sometimes people will look at it and they'll think it's a U, or they'll be like, what does that say? You know?
Yeah.
Or like they'll like, is it the Olapaka? I'll be like, the what? The Lolapaka?
What?
Like they'll be trying to pronounce the LOPLLC.
Mm.
So I don't know. To me, it's kind of hilarious. I don't know if that's bad because like they're not receiving it, but I kind of am tickled by it.
Yeah.
But it is a clear difference between that branding and like how people receive just seeing Lady Lowe's.
Yeah.
But it's so, as a creator, like hearing that, who's come up with my own logo, come up with like these own, what are like our own sayings or our own creations, I was really like relating to that, but being tickled because I was just like, yeah, like it didn't matter how you spelled it, people were receiving it. And I think that's a big deal and a good job, you know, because that means it's clear. To whereas there were times where I have to like giggle because I'm just like, oh yeah, this is being interpreted a couple ways, you know. I mean, no matter what, people are looking at it. So the fact that people are asking questions, it's a great thing.
Right.
But in some ways, it's not clear to people like what it is. And yeah, that could be a conversation starter. But for the clarity of your image, of your brand, of like how it's said, like people aren't wondering like, what is that? No, it's beautiful.
I mean, folks be pretending, but that's what tickles me because I know it's clear. You know what I'm saying? And it is what it is. But I feel like, you know, what you tell yourself about it is really more about you than the brand itself. You know what I'm saying? Like I want people to ask the questions they already know the answers to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But they don't ever ask themselves those questions.
That's really cool. Like how that could be brought out from a piece of clothing or from a spelling like the spelling alone. You know?
Mm. Well, I mean, it's part of the whole concept of the art. Because to me, art is supposed to evoke thought.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like that's why it's hard for me to vibe a lot of the music these days. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like people use words without really, um, without them really having any meaning. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't. I don't know. They just use words because they think the words sound cool, but they don't really mean anything. It doesn't have any. It's not saying anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
words with no weight.
Words with no weight. That's a beautiful poetic way to put it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, words with no weight.
I like what I mean. What you're talking about is important to me too. Like as a listener and as an artist, you know.
Yeah.
Before I ever even created anything on my own, what the meaning of a song was, or what they were saying, or like what the meaning of a piece was, because not every piece has a meaning or means what you think it means. But I was always curious, like what inspired this artist? What is this artist trying to say? And with music, you get to say it, you know, you get to sing it, you get to tell it. It's like you get to tell it, and we get to listen, we get to receive it, we get to like absorb it, or whatever, you know, way you want to talk about your encounter with this piece or with a piece of music. And so before I ever created my own, I always noticed how important it was to me what they're saying, like what's being said here. And even if there were no lyrics, like if it was an instrumental piece, what does it make me feel? Like what is it saying? You know, like does it make me think things? Am I like seeing a scene play out? Like, because you know, like that's why like I even like, you know, music that ends up being for like the score of a film, and I love listening to scores because like it's like, ooh, you could feel what's happening, like you could feel what's happening in the movie, and like these movements in this music, like you could feel the emotion of like what's playing out before your eyes.
Yeah.
And music has that ability, but then like we also can sing or talk or rap or whatever, you know. And so listen, they're literally saying something. And so what they were saying was always important to me. And so it's important what I say too. I'm like, what is this energy I'm putting out?
I mean, and that's, you know, I'm happy that you brought that up, because, you know, it's like we were talking before, and I'm like, you know, I always listen to your music, but I've been really listening to it, you know, because I knew we would sit down and talk, and I wanted to really kind of, you know, vibe it out and really hear what you were saying. And it's like, you know, I listen to your music, and it's so different. It's dope. It's different. Like the way you write is different. It's but it's you, because, and because I was telling Carrie I was going to talk to you, and we were talking about it, and I was like, you know, you are like your music. It's like, even like when you talk shit in your music, it feels like you still have a smile on your face. And I fucking you know what I'm saying? It's hilarious. It's like, you know what I mean? You be that I'm like, I'm listening to it, I'm like, yeah, she's talking that shit, but it's like, yo.
I feel like, okay, so I feel like in life, like I feel like my smile has like helped me, like saved me a lot, you know? Like we were talking about how like sometimes people will just be intimidated by who you are. And so like, you know, there's things that we do to preserve or to present ourselves in a way that says like, I'm approachable, or like whatever we have to deal with, you know what I mean? And for me, I feel like my smile has been that. Like when I was working in corporate spaces, like smiling literally like made it to where like, I don't know, like I sometimes it was forced because it's like, hey, you know, like I'm having to like force this smile so that you feel comfortable, kind of thing. But being able to do that, like, I don't know, like it became, I guess, in a bad way, like a skill, because like you're in these environments where like, you know, like if you didn't have that smile, but you're saying that real thing, the truth alone feels like an assault.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to like, I don't know, put some honey on it. I don't know how else to put it. And so like, I feel like my smile has like been the honey sometimes that I put on it. Cause like when people really talk to me and like realize how kind of like anti-capitalist I am, and like, I'm a little, you know, like people call me like a radical. Like that's the term I would get when I was working in the corporate space. Oh, you have radical ideas. You're a radical. And like, I didn't feel like what I was saying was radical. But if I said it, but I was smiling, somehow like they'll listen a little more. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. It's funny that you say that because I'm sitting up rapping about something that's like important, or like, man, I had a bad experience and this bad experience taught me a lesson, and the lesson was this, and that shit still didn't feel great. You know, like that's kind of what I'm saying.
You mean
But
like when he's hopping the curb?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that a little bit too. That was just like, man, embarrassment. Trying to make embarrassment seem cool, a little cooler than it is.
But I mean, if you smile through it, is it embarrassing?
True. I mean, the fact that I could was a good thing, because like you hit the curb and you go over your handlebars and you're uninjured.
I've been there.
That's a good thing.
Ooh.
You know, so like the fact that we're laughing, smiling about it.
Yeah.
That's probably the best outcome.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been to my city, and I pretty much, for the last 3 years that I was there, 4 years, like I rode my bike. My bike was my main mode of transportation as long as it wasn't raining or snowing. And man, I ate it so many times riding through that city. Like I remember the one time I ate it, and I bought a helmet after that. I was like, yeah, because if I eat it like that again.
Did you hit your head?
No, I didn't, but I almost did.
It made you go, oh my God.
Yeah, because I hit my hip, my elbow. I was fucked up, like scraped up. Yeah, ooh. I was coming down 7th, and I had this, I like single speed mountain bikes. I don't know, I always have.
I was going to ask you what kind of bike you were riding. Like, where were you riding through the city of New York?
At that time, I had a KHS Solo 1, a single speed mountain bike. It was red. I got that bike on Craigslist back in the day for like, I think like 200.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm talking like 07, 06, somewhere there. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I got that. And, you know, yeah, I rode the shit out of that bike. That bike got me in shape. Like,
what did it do for you experiencing the city on your bike versus like the other ways that you were getting around?
Man, it's different going through the city on a bike. First of all, a bike is the fastest way to get around New York. Period. End of story.
Noted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Period. End of story. Like, you know, and once you can ride the bridges, there's nowhere you can't go.
So wait, is there a bike lane on the bridge, or do you have to ride in the traffic?
No, there's bike lanes on. I mean, you know, I'm talking like mainly from like Queens to Manhattan, like all the bridges in Manhattan, there's bike lanes on them. Mm-hmm. But it's just, if you haven't ridden one of those bridges, it's a ride, because you know, it's like a constant 15-degree elevation for like, or I don't know how many degrees, like.
But you're going uphill.
You're going uphill for a long time for like, you know, straight. There's no leveling out. There's none of that. It's just constant uphill for, say, half a mile, you know, or a quarter mile or whatever. And then you hit the top, and then it's all sailing.
I was like a chick. Okay, so I took the subway most of the time when I was in New York.
Perfect.
But I was, like I ride fixie, and I'm not crazy. I have a brake. Like I ride with the brake. But still, I was trying to wrap my head around riding in New York City. I'm like, other than in the park, like in Central Park where it's all pretty to ride through the park, I'm like,
yeah,
it's intense out there. Like
it's fun.
So you rode in the street or like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you just ride.
Because I'm like, is there
bike lane or no bike lane?
Is there bike paths?
You got to know the rules. So the law is, because, the cops will mess with you if they have the opportunity. So if there's a bike lane on that street, you should be in that bike lane. But if there's no bike lane, you could just be wherever. And you can't be on the sidewalk.
So they'll mess with you if you're on the sidewalk.
I got a ticket for... So the day, actually, that same bike, that KHS Candy is what I call. I love that bike. It's a red bike. Maybe I'll put a picture of it here.
I gotta name my bike.
You don't have to. I name all my things. That's just me.
What a beautiful name. Her name is Candy.
Yeah, she was red. Beautiful red bike, KHS, single speed mountain bike, and loved it. But one day I was riding home. I was living in Harlem at the time. I was in Sugar Hill. And I was riding up 6th to get home, as I normally do. But they were doing construction. So like how they peel up the asphalt, and it's like the manhole covers are sticking up.
Yes.
So it was real rough. And I'm a big dude, so I'm riding the shit out of that bike because I ride fast. You know what I'm saying? And I'm riding it, and I go whoop, and the bottom bracket breaks. Yup, fortunately I didn't bust my ass, but the whole bottom bracket cracks. So like literally, the bike and it's chromoly, so you can't weld it back. It's not steel.
Yeah. This was the end of Candy?
That was the end of Candy. I broke Candy.
It was a tragedy.
It was a tragedy.
I didn't know this was where the story was going. Oh,
well,
Candy.
I mean, but then...
She was your first?
No, I had a Cannondale before that and it got stolen. I didn't even really get to name that one yet. I had bought it off one of my boys. Actually, my friend that brought me out here. I bought it from him when he was moving out here. He didn't want to carry it. I'm like, you in Colorado? Like, what the fuck?
You need
crazy?
that bike.
He's like, no, I'm going to get this bike. I'm like, all right, because bike heads.
Yes. I'm
like, fine, bro. All right, so I got a good deal on the Cannondale, and I was riding it around the city, you know what I'm saying? It was like geared, and it was blue and with yellow cannon. It was hard. It was a hard-ass bike. And I went to go visit my boy over like on 13th. He was from Colorado too. Now that I think about it, damn, I'm trying to remember his name.
Connection, it was meant to be.
Yeah, he was from Colorado. I had met him at a business conference. And we got to talking about Bud and whatever else. Yes. So he's like, yo, pull up. I'm like, bet. So I rode my bike up there, chained it up to the pole, went in, was there, getting belittled. And then came out, bike's gone.
Like the chain and everything,
the whole thing's gone. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I'm like, how? So I had it right in front of his building. So I went inside. I was like, yo, man, somebody stole my bike. I had a kryptonite lock on a big ass heavy chain.
Damn.
So he was like, yo, let me ask the super, because they had cameras. He showed me the cameras. My dumb ass chained it up on a pole that ain't have a sign. So these motherfuckers rolled up in a white van, slid it off the pole, threw it in the van.
Damn.
I was like, man.
You were just excited to get stoned. You didn't think anybody was good. Man, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I see how that could happen.
So, never chain your bike up on a pole without a sign.
Yes.
Because, it's on a pole, but there's nothing locking it on that pole because there's no sign.
They'll lift it.
They lifted it off the freaking pole. You know what I'm saying? That was like a nice bike. So then I got Candy. And then after Candy broke, I got Goldie.
Candy to Goldie. I love the names. I love the
Goldie.
names.
I still have Goldie. I love Goldie.
Is she golden?
Partially, but she rides golden.
Because you said that Candy was because she was candy red.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. Goldie is there's gold lines on her, but it's mostly white and with gold lines, black, and then a gray fork that I got from my boy. The original fork was gold. The original fork was gold, and in the city you don't need a suspension fork. It's really a pain in the ass. So. Yeah. But because I'm a bike head and I'm OCD and whatever else it's a Trek. It's a Trek Marlin SS, and there's a certain geometry for the headset, and only certain forks would adhere to that geometry.
So it didn't line up, or it was a special piece.
Like I couldn't find a fork. The only forks that I could find for it were suspension forks. I couldn't find a fixed fork, a solid fork that had that geometry, except one chance in a million, my boy, same motherfucker that lives here, he still lives in Boulder, he bought a Trek Sawyer, and his Trek Sawyer came with a rigid fork, and he was here and he wanted a suspension fork.
So you were able to just trade?
Yeah.
That is so crazy.
Word.
And like the serendipitousness of he gave you the Cannondale, then moved here.
Yeah.
Then needed what you had to trade.
Yeah.
And he had what you needed to trade.
Yeah.
So nobody had to come out of pocket.
Nah.
But then this like epic saga of bikes. I just, bikes are so special.
Yeah,
that's why they end up in my music, because like, I don't know, like I'm just trying to encourage people to get a bike. Like just, I'll say it at shows. Get a bike.
Get a bike.
You will feel amazing. You'll feel like a kid all over again.
Yep.
Like it really just, you get to experience the world in a whole different way. And I don't know, like the smells. I think that was like the first thing I remember, like when I got a bike again, because I was like, I feel like I was like 24, 25 when I decided I'm going to ride bikes. And it started with a mountain bike for me too. But I didn't name it. Now I'm like, I want to name my bikes.
You can. I think everything.
I'm going to try.
Everything. That's just how, I don't know. I've always been that way. Like, I guess I see life in objects. I don't know. Like they have a character. You know what I'm saying? But,
I'll have to show you my bike, and then maybe I'll let you name my bike.
Yeah, nah, we go riding, and we'll come up with a name.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's I like how you kind of bring your life into life through your music, like encouraging people to get bikes and just encouraging people to like just vibe with themselves and not really, which was it, Lovable Loser?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about like, they talk the P word.
They all about that P word. They say I got that P word. Yeah. What is it? Potential. Yeah, that one came from basketball. So like, I don't know. My parents were young parents. They're awesome people. I love my parents. They really tried to kind of make me like a church girl, to be honest. But it was a little too late because I was, how like you got to be that perfect age to like be, and I don't mean I should say no shade to anybody who is
say what it is.
A Christian. If you're a Christian, it's no shade on you. But like, I feel like as a child, when you question, like, I love you. That's why I love you. He said, I don't care.
I came up in it, so I could talk about it. I don't care.
It's just one of those things that, like, I feel like you have to be a certain age to be indoctrinated, like, to not question, like, to unquestionably be, like, just accept it with no questions. So, like, I don't know. It's not that we had never gone to church before, but it was just we weren't super serious about being in church. And then all of a sudden, in third grade, we're going to church 4 times a week. And so I was just like, man, why do we got to do this?
Yeah.
And it was this like, oh, well, we got to like get closer to God, like to be closer to God. And I'd be like, what do you even, to get closer to God? Like, what does that, like, it never made sense to me. So it was something that I feel like my parents try to do the things that like, set a kid right and, make sure they're on that good path. And I just wasn't really like into the religion. And I feel like that was like the thing that kind of gave me that edge from just the jump within my own family, that edge. And so then I just always had an edge because it was like, I wanted to play sports. I really cared about being active. I wanted to compete. I like,
that's good.
Especially when I was growing up, there was just such a, like, I can't tell you how many times people were like, girls can't do that, or you're a girl, you should be doing this, or like, questioning if I'm a girl or not because I like to play sports, or telling me that I'm not to be taken seriously because girls' sports don't matter. Like, and people would used to say that to my face. Like, this was a time that people really didn't, because, like the WNBA didn't exist at that time. You know what I mean? So like, there was still so much like misogyny just accepted and ingrained in society that like, I can't tell you how many times people literally said, you're a girl, you can't do this. So
you're doing that,
between that kind of edge and then like the religious edge, but I was good at sports. So people would talk shit, but then I'd be like, well, come get your ass whooped by a girl. Like that's what's about to happen.
I'm talking about. Talking shit with that smile, man.
But it's cause like, it's fun. Oh, like you want to test it? Cool. Let's do it. Cause like this is what I do, and it's not that like, I don't think I can be beaten, but I think that you spend more time talking shit than doing what I do.
Right.
So come and get a taste of what a girl could do. You know what I mean? And so like, that's kind of like the attitude I had, but I feel like having that attitude when you're I don't know if it's still like this. I'm going to start coaching, so it's not going to be like this on my team. But like, there's just this idea of like, oh, well, you're a lady, you should behave like this. And like, we're going to ref your sports like this. And we're going to dictate how your behavior when you're on the bench or off the bench, or when we move as a team, or when you move as a person, like you're a lady, you should be doing this. And so even within the sport, you have that sort of ideas, like those beliefs behind people, right? People who are either reffing your sport, coaching your team, other teams, like these sorts of beliefs are injected into it. A lot of people are coming from religious backgrounds, so then the religion gets injected into it. So then the lens that you're seen through isn't even like a lens that actually represents who you are. Like you're being seen for other things that aren't even who you are. So I felt like I always had this edge to me that like certain coaches would be like, okay, well, you got all this potential, but if you just this, and this, but they're really just talking like my behavior. Like if you would just, not be this way, if you would just listen to what I said blindly without questioning, if, and some of the things were discipline things. Like I did need to listen. Like, I wanted to party in high school. I was trying to be like, I don't know. My dad's side of the family, my biological dad's side of the family, they were kind of partiers. And so I had this exposure to, drinking and partying. That means that's fun. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be able to do it all because, we're watching media that's like I remember like American Pie and those types of movies, The Wood, like these movies where you're like in these party situations and these like coming of age kind of situations. So like, I just remember seeing movies like that. And so you have this idea of like what it is to be cool and like what you want to be and how you want to show up and how you want people to see you, especially when you're like a kid. A lot of that involves like drinking or doing, but you also want to excel. So then I want to be good at sports. So I'm taking the time to do all this stuff. But then when you're on the court and then you're not like, yes, coach, doing whatever, you might have like a little attitude or you want to do a behind the back pass. You want to juke somebody out. You want to like give somebody a little sauce and like maybe not even talk shit, but just like look at them and like fuck with them a little bit. Like, because it's competitive.
Line them up.
Yeah. But then, you're out here in Colorado, so then you're seen differently. Oh man, you're just like a little rough around the edges, or like, I can't tell you how many times people be like, even at DU, like, I'm a little too hood. I'm like, do you even know what that means? Like, but so this loaded language. Yeah. And so even when it's not that over the top, it's, well, you just got so much potential. Like, if you just, did this, but you got so much potential. And so that's what that was about, is like, as a woman, like I said the P word just because then as a woman, it's like, people think like, oh, that pussy power, that pussy. And it's like, well, it's a play on that.
Yeah.
But it's mostly like this potential of like, if you do what I say, the way I say you do it, you know, then you'd be successful. And it's like, no, that's not what would make me successful. Like the most behaved people, they're not the most successful people.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? They're not the most remembered people.
Right.
So like, to me, I was just like, you just want to control me.
Right.
You know, and some of it was like teenage rambunctiousness, but some of it was like, I knew what the hell I was talking about, and you just want to control me. And I'm never going to fall in line like that. Like, I'm not going to go against who I am to make you happy, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess I just got potential. You know, I guess you could just think me as a loser because it doesn't make me a loser. That's what you think.
Right.
That's not what I am.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So.
No, it's dope. You know, I'm happy you said that because I kind of felt that when you said the P word, like, you know, and then when you said potential, I was like, oh, okay. But then it's like, you know, the undertone is still there. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's dope that how you kind of subvert the conscious with the creativity.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Which to me is what it's all about. So what is, you know, you say what you say? I'm just a stick in the stream.
Oh yeah. Okay. So when I was at Kent, I used to teach at Kent Denver, and like Kent Denver is like a really prestigious, at least like in the state, the way most people would look at it on paper and think about this place. Like it's very prestigious. It's a 6 through 12. Like it's where the most like wealthy people send their kids to a private education. Like it's around $30K for your kid to go there.
Wow.
Whether it's 6 through 12, like it's $30K a kid. If, you know, like, I mean, if you got down to it, there's like financial aid, things like that they provide. But like
kids, yeah.
People who don't qualify for those exemptions, like they're paying $30K a kid. And so.
But it's like they only got, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just thinking like they only got so many exemptions though, right?
Well, I mean, it's a very wealthy place, right? Like it's a wealthy community. So like the people who are paying that $30K, they're paying that $30K gladly as a statement to be like, I could afford this.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, I mean, they got really good experts in their field. They got really good counselors and stuff. So like the opportunity for kids is pretty great there. The facilities are great there. So like they're paying for this privatized experience for their child, you know? So the people who can afford that, that's what they're paying for. And so the people who can't afford that, then they're paying what they can, but they're also paying because like, I don't know, like they're going to be one of the not wealthy people there. And like, there's a lot going on that as a student, like I'm not going to speak because I didn't go there as a student, but I was there as an educator. And even as an educator, even as an adult, like when you step onto that campus, like the level of wealth that you see there and like the expectation of how you should dress, how you should show up, like there's feelings like when you see that level of wealth and prestige of like, meaning like the quality of the way the buildings look, how everything's so manicured and perfect and stuff. And so like kids are showing up and like feeling like, okay, like, you know, we ball out. Like my parents are on the board or like they could afford for me to go here. And then there's like this keeping up with the Joneses amongst like the wealthy. But then, you know, there's the experience of being there on that campus. But that's a whole other conversation. It's more, that's what the setting was. And so
right.
I was working within the middle school and this man, he was somebody I really liked having conversations with. Good. And he was a really good leader and he cared about what he did and he cared about the kids and he's a good person, you know. But he would always have this like really old school kind of talk with the kids. And so we would have these assembly meetings with the kids and he would talk about, you know, you don't want to be a stick on the river. You know, you want to be a motorboat. And so he described how like the stick on the river, you know, doesn't do their homework. They don't really know what's going on in school. They just like let the, you know, the flow of the river take them wherever they end up. They might get stuck in an eddy and they have no direction essentially. And then talking about how like, you know, the motorboat has direction and they basically like telling kids like you need to study. Like that was like the, you know, care about what you're doing, focus on where you're going, you know. is what he was trying to say. But a lot of those messages get lost because whether we want to or not, as adults, we're injecting in what we think that means, like what that is to show up as the motorboat versus to show up as the stick in the river. And so your own beliefs could start to get injected into this. And so no matter what, I felt like me as a kid, I might have received that message as, well, if I don't do all these things, then I guess like I'm the stick. I'm the stick, so you think I'm a loser. And like, to me, I would kind of mess with that. I'd be like, oh, I guess I'm the stick on the river. Like, I feel like just like laying on my back and floating today, like I would play with that because I'm just like this is still just like any other doctrine where you're trying to get me to do what you say.
Yeah.
And like, yes, as a kid, we're always going to have that rebellion. And so, it's a part of you needing to understand how to work within the world and with other people. And it's not all about you. But like, as a kid, I was just like, I feel like so much of this has to do with like these hard lessons about your grades. And like, if you're not getting good grades, then you are a loser, or you're a stick in the river. And I'm like, that's not always why people are getting good or bad grades. And like, there's all these different things that I'm like, the message gets lost. And so I was just kind of playing on that. Like, cause I feel like sometimes the message can get lost in there. And like, so any kid that felt like they were the stick on the river, like, you're not. Like, that's somebody else's idea. Like, you don't have to eat it. Like, it's nourishment for you. It doesn't nourish you. It's okay. Like, that's not for you. Like, you don't have to feed off of that. And you could play with it. You could have a food fight. You could throw it back at them, And so that was kind of like me being able to like throw it back and be like, you say all this potential. There's this expectation as a woman of how I should be showing up, what I have to offer, what I should be. And then there's this potential of, but I could be so great if I just do what you say. And then, but like, I'm none of those things. Like, I am what I say I am. It's kind of what it was. It was like, I choose that. Exactly. I choose that. And if I wasn't, then why would I say I am? Right? No. Right. But I don't know. That's just, that's what the message of that one. I had a friend who told me, was like, I don't really like that song. Like, what were you saying there? You're not a loser. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying like all these messages that they're saying, this is what the stick on the river is. I literally have been that person before. But here I am, like, working amongst these people, doing these things, making an impact, doing good in the world. And if I believed this message, I wouldn't be doing these things. If those things landed and I accepted that as the truth, like, I would be a loser, but I'm not. So, like, I guess I'm a lovable loser because I still do all these things that they tell me not to do, but I can still make an impact and I'm still a good person,
Right.
So, like, I guess I'm just the loser they love, So that was just like the play on that,
Oh, that's dope.
And so she was like, oh, okay, I guess. But I'm just like, it's not for you to get. And it's okay that you don't get it because those who feel it, they'll receive it. And, they'll interpret it whatever way they want anyways. That's what we're doing. We're just doing our best.
I found it really interesting because I have a friend that says that all the time. He's like, I'm just a stick in the river, but it's like the way he uses it is very different because, we have these conversations. He's a dope photographer. And, we have these conversations and I'm because of how I am and how I grew up, I feel like I'm very like, okay, things need to be a certain way for me. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the same because when I was in school, like, I got good grades, but, I used to cut school all the time, go to hooky parties and like wild out. But I always got like 85 and better. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just, school was easy for me. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of like, I felt like the same way, but because of how I was raised, I had so much like guilt about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because what am I not living up to my full potential because it's easy for me to get good grades and still party. You know what I'm saying?
I'd have been like, see, you're God's favorite. Like, you get to do it all. I mean, in some ways, I felt like that person too. I wasn't always strong with math. So that was where, like, I really needed to pay attention. But I did get away with a lot in the sense of, like, I didn't have to study that hard. Like, in college, yeah, I did. But high school, like, basically all the way through high school, all the way through that, K through 12, like, it wasn't super duper hard. I mean, I think there were certain challenges like in elementary school, but like me feeling like the person who I am and like, oh, I'm making my own decisions. I think I know who I am now and I'm a baller. I play basketball. I do this. This is where I'm trying to go. Like, I don't know. Like, I felt like I didn't have to study that hard. I felt like I procrastinated a lot, but I'd still like pump out a paper and like get good grades, but I didn't really work hard. So I don't know. Like, I think sometimes that would piss people off. Like, I don't know if you ever like had people that were like saw you as undisciplined because you could do that and it would make them mad.
I mean, like, not really, because like the folks that would feel that way didn't really know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I never got busted or nothing. So
I just had this girl in college that I knew she was hot with me. It was my sophomore year of college, and I could just tell she was just kind of hot with me because, like, I wouldn't try that hard in school, but I'd get good grades, and then I'd be out partying, and then I'd go to practice, and I'd do well. But, like, she would be looking at it like, you have no discipline. And I didn't. Like, at that time, I didn't even know what that word meant. But I knew what it meant enough to, like, I still had enough pride about how I wanted to be on the court, that I wanted to be good, But, like, the fact that I was doing all these things that coaches tell you, not like, we were all partying a little, we were drinking a little bit. You're not supposed to be drinking underage. You're not supposed to be doing that in college, But I was doing those things. I wasn't playing it by the book. And it wasn't like a crazy partier. You can't do all that, but I wasn't playing it by the book. And so I knew she was kind of hot about it.
I mean, but that's really her, her insecurities with herself because she can't do it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I never really had that issue. I don't know. If so, I don't know. I never really paid attention to that.
But why did you guilt yourself? Because I feel like...
Because of how I grew up in the church and religion and all that.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because everybody, my whole family, I grew up in it. Like, so from as long as I can remember, pretty much. You know what I mean? We was in the church, but I got disenchanted with it pretty young when I was like probably 7 or 8, because I was like, I got into it. Like, I'm very, for better or for worse, I'm very literal.
Yeah.
So, if you saying this is how we supposed to live, then this is how we supposed to live. But that's not what I'm seeing around me.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And
did it get you in trouble, or would you just think it and not say it out loud?
Well, at first, because I was young enough where I could ask questions and not really be too chastised too much, but I couldn't go too hard with it. But it was like, because I'm 7 or 8, and I'm like I'm a young Bible scholar. Like, I'm, because they got Bible school, Sunday school, and like I would go home, read, and like study and whatever else. So I knew, and I would, knew all my stuff, knew all the books, all the chapters, all the stories. But seeing how like folks was living in the church, I'm like, this ain't lining up. And then I'd be like, I'd go talk to the brother, whoever it is that's like running the youth program or something. And I'd be like, yo, what about this? And what about that? And he's like, oh, don't worry about it, man. Just have faith. Just have your faith, and that's it. And I'm like, yeah, but this don't make sense, because we talk about folks that's like, supposed to, when they in church, they like, oh, but when they outside, it's like a different person. And, there's just a lot of, it's just disingenuous. And it's like, it's not genuine. It's not sincere. It's, I don't know, so I got disenchanted at a very young age with it. And the deeper I looked into it, the foundations of it, because I'm like, all right, everybody that I care about in life, this is what they believe. My whole family, you know what I'm saying? But does that mean that I have to believe it too? And if I am going to believe it, what am I believing? What am I getting into? So I started going into foundation and like the foundations of Christianity and, this belief system. And the further I look back, it was just like, oh, it's just kind of like, creating a system for people to live by in a world where there are very few answers.
Mm-hmm. There were so many things that were really connecting, as you were sharing. The disenchantment piece connected big, and it's interesting. Like I don't know. I feel like that could be like a whole other topic of stuff like we can ask people, because like when did the disenchantment happen and what was it like? What did you go through? Because for me, the disenchantment was like, I remember, like they're making us go to Sunday school and they're telling you all the rules essentially and telling you how this works and why you should do this or do that and why you should have faith and why you should believe. And I remember like we were on the way to church one day and we were in the car. We were on the way to, we were on the way from, but we were in the car. And I remember like my mom talking about like, well, you have to believe that Jesus Christ is your savior and you'll go to heaven. And so as long as you like have that conversation with God and you believe that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, you'll spend everlasting life in heaven. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. But I was like, hold up though. Like, so you're telling me there's people, because I'm reading in National Geographic and I'm learning at school that there's people who have no contact with the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they're like deep in the jungle or whatever. Like maybe they're not reading a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me that just because of that, something that they didn't choose and God essentially chose for them, they don't have the word. So they don't know the name Jesus. So you're telling me that they're going to hell? And she kind of was just like, and I'm like, I'm under 10 years old and I'm like asking her this. I'm like, so that's what you're saying?
Right.
And she's just like, well, that's what the Bible says. Like, and that's kind of, and I just remember being like, well, that doesn't work for me.
Right.
And I think like that kind of sparked something in me. Like in general, like I noticed that about my life and my beliefs. Like if I feel like there's just something so inequitable or just like unjust, like you're telling me this is like the God of all gods and like could foresee everything, but like didn't foresee this. And like, that's the solution for this. Like these innocent people are going to burn in hell essentially because they never saw a Bible and never heard the name Jesus. Like that doesn't work for me. Like they didn't do anything wrong. And technically under the same scripture that you're telling me is truth, and I need to have faith in, that God created those people too. So why are these people so unlucky? What did they do? Like they didn't do anything. So like that doesn't work for me. And I feel like, I don't know, like whether it was my coach or my teacher or like there's certain things that I'm like, that doesn't work for me. And it's not because, like it just makes me feel uncomfortable. It usually comes down to like, that really doesn't make sense and is completely unethical, completely inequitable. Like
don't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. Like, but you're telling me I'm supposed to have blind faith in this. Like that doesn't work for me.
This is why we got to support the missionaries so they can go out there and spread the word and make sure these poor people don't fall into that situation.
Yeah, that's creepy talk to me.
That's what it is. That's what they would say, though. That's what they'd tell me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I feel like we all had that moment with our elders, because that's definitely the same thing, that whether that's exactly what my mom said or not, like that was kind of the underlying message. Like, well, you just don't question that. And like, you just trust that it's in God's plan. And I mean, there are levels that I'm like, I do trust in the great mystery. I do trust in the way things will unravel. Like, and we could call it a plan, sure. But sure. I do trust in that. But it doesn't look like what you just described to me or what I'm supposed to just blindly accept. And so I don't know, like
it just don't make sense.
It just never did to me. And so I don't know, like that was the other thing is like, okay, so it doesn't make sense to me and it doesn't work for me, but I'm not telling you what to do. And that was what the difference was. And like, yes, this is mother to child. So there is like, you got to listen to your mom. But even as an adult, like a lot of the things that like become policy or like are impacting other people's lives for real, they come from a place of religious belief and religious doctrine and aren't the final say. But like, okay, that's cool for you, but why is it got to be for everybody, whether they believe in it or not, you know?
Right.
So that's where like, I feel like that's the difference. I'm telling you that doesn't work for me, but I'm not telling you, you got to do what works for me.
Right.
But that's what you're telling me.
Right.
You know? I don't know. I think that's where it comes back to the lovable loser again. Cause it's like, okay, well that don't work for me. I guess I'm a loser. Cool. I'm gonna be over here. Cause you know, it's a beautiful thing to be a stick on the river. Like how beautiful it is to just lay there and float on that beautiful water, being just like organic piece of nature. You know, like it's you're in your raw essence.
Hell yeah. Just cool, cruising down the river. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's